welcome. So our topic this week is a hot topic, actually. It's about spiritual bypassing. And we'll go over the definition, the levels of spiritual bypassing, examples, and how to stop bypassing. So why talk about spiritual bypassing? This topic has surfaced in our collective conversations because it's a thing, and it's happening in spiritual communities everywhere. And for us to do our part, we must be willing to see our blind spots individually and collectively as best as we can. And spiritual bypassing can certainly get in the way of that. The term spiritual bypassing was originally discovered by psychologist John Welwood in 1984. As a Buddhist teacher and a psychotherapist, Mr. Welwood recognized that this in his own spiritual community. He saw that people were avoiding unresolved issues through spirituality, so he merged Eastern spirituality with Western psychotherapy, which is called psychospiritual, in which I spoke about in my last video. So, what is spiritual bypassing? Well, most people turn towards a more spiritual life because they want to feel better. They crave a life with less stress, discomfort, and pain, and want to connect to ease, well-being, joy, and freedom. Although these are things we desire, and spirituality is a great outlet to create this joy and freedom. But let's face it, life isn't always easy and can be challenging at times. The definition of spiritual bypassing is when we use our spiritual practices to escape life's challenges and avoid or suppress reality to a point where it can become an addiction, attaching to toxic positivity, and sometimes avoid true personal growth. I have fallen short in this area plenty of times early in my spiritual practice, in my spiritual journey, and during my spiritual journey, and it has not been pretty, but I have worked through it. So here are some examples why someone would spiritually bypass. I'll go over to the levels of bypassing shortly. So for those who personally bypass would be those who have lost loved ones, broken relationships, childhood abuse, loneliness, self-sabotaging behaviors, fear, mental, emotional illness, and other problems life presents. And oftentimes spirituality becomes handicapped in the face of life's turmoil. And sometimes this is necessary. We all need support and the ease that something greater than us will help us. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about people using spirituality as a drug and becoming dependent to bypass the darker spots in their lives, or others who say, my spirit guide made me do it, without using discernment, or using love and light as a slogan to make everything all sunshine and rainbows. Life is multidimensional and has much contrast. True spirituality requires you to shed all of your false beliefs, illusions, false desire ideals, and preconceptions. It means to surrender to every limiting thought, thing you have ever felt about yourself, people, and the world. Some people call it the ego death or the dark night of the soul. Spirituality and spiritual growth is not pretty. In fact, it's messy, uncomfortable, life-altering. But on the other side, it's absolutely amazing. When you get to the other side, it's like a phoenix rising with a new perspective and a new pair of lenses, being able to see things with clarity and an open heart. The truth is that there are many types of spiritual bypassing that aren't recognized, or sometimes people refuse to see it in their lives. So here are some common types of spiritual bypassing. The first one is the positive bypass. Only positive vibes, please. Forcefully being optimistic, avoiding anything that is troublesome, and avoids any negative emotions as a whole. And then you have the victim bypass, not being able to take responsibility for your own happiness due to your spiritual growth, your spiritual gifts. Take, for example, someone who's empathic, where they feel everything or they feel too much, and not being able to create healthy boundaries for the energy that they're surrounded by. Making excuses for self-destructive behaviors and being in self-pity. And then you have the spirit guide bypass. Yes, God protects us. Yes, angels, animals, and spirit guides take care of us. And we go to them for guidance. But the other side of that is also to remember that we have free will. Spirit guides are meant to teach us and help us along our journey, but not meant to babysit us. Another thing would be having discernment in what your spirit guides are asking you to do. If it's not in alignment, or it feels off, or they say something to make you say something to hurt someone else, it's essential to pause. And then we have what you would call the spiritual leader bypass. Yes, it's so important to have teachers like gurus, shamans, spiritual teachers to learn, to evolve and grow. But this is another form of spiritual bypassing that can happen very quickly. There is a temptation to worship these teachers, eventually forgetting the purpose of the teachings received from that spiritual teacher. The important thing to remember here is that spiritual teachers are also human and can also fall short. If it doesn't sit well with you, be transparent. Ask questions. A good teacher will answer your questions. Following blindly is not using what we call spiritual discernment, especially if it does not sit well within your inner knowing. So, how do we stop spiritually bypassing? Here are some methods you might want to use. One would be nurture an open mind and an attitude. Be willing to be wrong, misguided, completely off the mark. The other one would be ask others for their honest opinions. If you have any close friends or a family member who you know is healthy and you respect and the relationship is healthy, talk to them about your spiritual path. And then we have looking at your pain. Look at your pain. Look and feel your pain. It's not easy to look at our pain. It can be painful and emotional. And looking at that pain that has grief, shame, rage, and hatred and fear is important. You may require the help of a spiritual coach or therapist, and that is okay. I'm not saying to not utilize spiritual practices to face pain or discomfort. I'm simply saying that it's important to use spiritual discernment and recognize where we are wrong and misaligned. We need to be able to face our pain and shadows to get to the juicy stuff. The spiritual path is demanding. And while it can bring incredible peace, wisdom, courage, and many attributes, it requires us to continually assess and refine ourselves. When we are more honest brave and courageous under self-examination, the more clearly we can see ourselves, the more actively we can embody the spiritual concepts we hold as truths. So I hope you found this video helpful, that you can take a nugget from here and utilize it for yourself. If you would like to add on to this topic, please comment below. It is always such an honor and a privilege to share this information, but for all of you to watch these videos. And I thank you. So signing out, Sacred Wild Woman. Bye for now.